The LA Kings road woes continue, plus the team might have another area to address. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Well, the LA Kings were back in action on Saturday, game 58 of the regular season, one night after an ugly 6-2 loss in Dallas against the Stars the night before. It was game 2 of their 3-game road trip as the Kings were in St. Louis to face the Blues for the first time this season. And it was the first of 3 meetings between the two teams in the next 4 games. There'll be 2 more meetings between the Kings and Blues in LA next week. We would have some lineup changes in this one for the Kings. First of all, LA would be going to the 12-6 setup for this game. That would be 12 forwards and 6 defensemen. The top line would have Andrei Kopitar centering Alex Turcotte and Alex Laferriere for a second straight game. The second line listed is Philip Deneau with Warren Foegele and Trevor Moore on the wings. The third line, Quinton Byfield centering Kevin Fiala and Adrian Kempe. And the fourth line would have Trevor Lewis centering Tanner Jeannot and Akil Thomas in the lineup for the first time for the Kings since February the 7th. As for the defensive pairings, Mikey Anderson would be with Vladislav Gavrikov on the top pairing, Joel Edmondson and Drew Doughty, the second pairing, and Jacob Moverar and Jordan Spence on the third pairing. Your 2 healthy scratches were both defensemen Brant Clark and Kyle Burrows. David Riddick back in net for the Kings, with LA playing back-to-back games, and Darcy Kemper serving as the backup after getting the start the night before in Dallas. Big question for me coming into this game: would the Kings turn the page and play well after an ugly defeat in Dallas the night before? Well, the game summary in this one: the Kings would grab an early lead on a power play goal. Yes, you heard me right, a power play goal on the road from Kevin Fiala to take a 1-0 lead. It would be pretty much downhill after that. St. Louis would respond to tie it up at 1-1, and then a late goal would give the Blues a 2-1 lead. Second period, St. Louis would score on a breakaway to make it 3-1. Early in the third period, Blues score on a routine shot to make it 4-1, and that would be all. Blues beat the Kings 4-1. LA falls to 31-19-8 on the season, 12-16-5 on the road, and 0-2 on this current 3-game road trip. As for the game stats in this one, pretty much tells the story. Not only did the Blues win it 4-1, but they outshot the Kings 34-26. The special teams actually favored the Kings, LA going 1-for-1 on the power play, while holding the Blues without a power play goal after being shorthanded 2 times. Faceoffs favored the Kings 29-28. Hits favored St. Louis 34-25. Block shots favored the Blues 20-10. So it was good from a team standpoint by the Kings. Well, they actually started pretty well, got the first goal, and that's usually a good sign for the Kings, and seemed to have some good energy after coming off that tough loss in Dallas the night before. As I mentioned, the Kings actually won the special teams battle, which is not something we've been able to say a lot this season, especially on the road. But again, the Kings did get a power play goal, and they did not allow St. Louis to score on their 2 power play opportunities, which is a good sign for the Kings of late, as they've had some issues with the penalty kill lately. What was not so good for the Kings from a team standpoint? Well, goaltending, which we will get to much more coming up in a bit. Obviously, just getting 1 goal is not going to get it done most of the time. But I thought a bigger issue for me, and I think more concerning for me, is, again, the Kings' defense. Not aggressive, passive, chasing the play way too much. Now, we kind of know the Kings are typically not a great offensive team. If they can get 3 goals, we're pretty excited about it. If they get more than that, it's like, wow. But defensively is where this team has been special this year. And lately they have not been special. If the Kings can't play their normal style of strong defense where they're allowing, 2, maybe 3 goals a game, they're not going to win a lot of games. So to me, that's a major issue right now. and a concern right now for the LA Kings. As for our coach's quote from head coach Jim Hiller, he said after the loss to St. Louis, quote, "It's a season where it goes up and down, but when it goes down for a couple of games, you've got to pull yourself out in a hurry. How do you do that? Well, you've got to say, well, it's the beginning of March. There's a lot of games, but we need to win. And so there has to be a higher level of intensity, desperation for the game. You can't manufacture that each and every game over 82, but now you've got to pull that out. The whole team has to raise it for the next game," end quote. Also, thought of note, Kings veteran defenseman Joel Edmondson, former St. Louis Blue, back in St. Louis playing where he won a Stanley Cup, said after the game that Monday's game in Chicago was a must-win game for the Kings. That's pretty strong considering, most of the time coaches and players don't like to say must-win unless it's an elimination type game, because then if you lose the game, then what? But I like Edmondson putting it out there. I like him kind of putting out a challenge, and we'll see if the Kings answer that challenge or not. Suddenly, a game against a lowly team like the Blackhawks feels like an important game. But the big takeaway for me from this loss against St. Louis, the Kings right now find themselves in one of those funks where things just aren't going their way. And there's an old saying, you make your own luck. And the Kings are not making their own luck right now. So that means winning little battles that end up adding to big moments, making the right play at the right time, capitalizing on an opportunity. You never try to overreact to a couple of games in a row. It's a long season, but we're now in March, as Jim Hiller said, and this is where you want to start playing the right way as a team as you get towards those important games late in the year and, of course, hopefully for the Kings into the playoffs. It is very rare that a team can just flip a switch and turn it on when they need to. And the Kings don't really seem like that type of team either. They're a team that needs to be playing consistently the right way, especially defensively, night in and night out, to be playing their brand of hockey, to be a tough team to play against. And the Kings have not been that now 2 consecutive games. Now, they haven't been great on the road. As we said, we know there's a lot of home games coming up. That's probably a good thing, but there's still some important road games to go, and the Kings can't let opportunities slip away to get points. And right now, it's not even about getting points. It's about just playing a really solid 3 periods of hockey. Hopefully, we'll see that on Monday in Chicago against the Blackhawks. All right, we're going to get into some individual performances in the loss to St. Louis. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NBA action is getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place a live bet throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to get in on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can always combine your live bets with a same-game parlay. FanDuel's live betting feature keeps you engaged in every moment of the action, whether it's backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three-pointer. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's talk about some of the individual performances in the loss to the St. Louis Blues. And we always start with the goaltender. And in particular, that is a big circle for this game, and that would be David Riddick. Now, if you've listened or watched this show for any length of time, you probably know I am pretty forgiving when it comes to the goaltending position. I think they have a very difficult job, one of the toughest jobs in all of sports, and more often than not, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. That having been said, I thought David Riddick was nowhere near being good enough in this one. Now, of course, he didn't let everything in. He actually had some good saves, but not nearly good enough. His overall performance in this game against St. Louis was not up to the professional standard, I guess you might want to say. We'll check out the goals that he allowed. First goal he allowed was from not a great angle down low. He gets beat with a wrist shot. Not a great goal allowed, but I guess not awful. The second goal was a really bad decision on the part of David Riddick. There was a loose puck just outside the crease, and he tried to dive on it like a fumble in football, and he didn't get it. Wasn't able to cover the puck, and then he's left scrambling. And the Blues end up putting it into basically an empty net. Riddick even did like a full 360 spin trying to figure out where the puck was. That's never a good idea. I've never played goalie before, but I'm pretty sure you don't want to do a complete spin around in your net. I would think that once you kind of lose track of where the puck is, you got to get back on your feet, get back in your position, and then try and assess where the puck is. Just kind of scrambling around and looking for it like you just dropped your car keys or something is probably not the best way to go about it. The third goal was on a breakaway. So I'll won't chalk that up to David Riddick on that one. Again, I talked about the Kings not making their own luck lately. A block shot goes up in the air. No one knows where it is except the one St. Louis player who takes it and goes all the way down in and scores on Riddick. The fourth goal, though, just a wrist shot from the top of the faceoff circle straight away. Riddick saw it all the way, no screen, no deflection. That was a really soft goal. Riddick also had some really bad plays that didn't end up being goals on the scoreboard. Had a terrible giveaway on a clearing attempt right up the middle of the ice. It was intercepted, and he had to make an incredible save just to erase his own mistake. He let in a goal at the buzzer on a Hail Mary shot at the end of the second period. Now, fortunately, the clock just struck zero right before the goal crossed the goal line, so he was very lucky on that one as well. But all in all, subpar performance from David Riddick. And now on the season, he's 12-12-2, and on the road, 3-10. He's lost 7 straight starts on the road. It's pretty clear the Kings, I think, now have another issue that they may have to address, and that's backup goalie. And they could either address it at the upcoming trade deadline by making a trade to bring somebody in, or I would say a better option is calling up Eric Portillo and giving him a chance to be the backup if he's available. More on that coming up. As for Portillo, I think he's going to be the number 2 goalie next season anyway. Go ahead and give him a head start on handling those duties. In the playoffs, look, the Kings are going to live and die with Darcy Kemper. But the Kings have back-to-back games 4 more times this season, so that's 4 more starts for your backup goalie. And the way things are going for the Kings, those 4 games could be important games. So right now, I have to say, I don't trust David Riddick anymore. I'd give Eric Portillo a chance to be the number 2 goalie going forward again, if he's available. And we'll give you the story on that coming up. As far as some other individuals for the Kings, well, only 1 goal scored. That came from Kevin Fiala. So good to see Kevin starting off a new month, March 1st, with a goal. He obviously had a phenomenal February where he had 7 goals in 8 games, the most goals he's scored in any month this year, and that's with 2 weeks off. So he gets the Kings a rare power play goal with an unstoppable shot, a perfect one-timer off the crossbar and in. His 24th goal of the season, team-leading 8th goal on the power play. That said, Fiala didn't have much going on 5-on-5 the rest of the way. And the line that he was on with Quentin Byfield and Adrian Kempe was broken up in the second period because the Kings were, well, looking for something else. The spark that we've seen that line give over the last couple of games when they've been thrown together wasn't really there in this game. And I thought Adrian Kempe had a tough game by his standards. I thought he had a couple of lapses defensively. And when he doesn't play well defensively, it kind of stands out because he's usually so good at the defensive side of the game. But he wasn't his usual self, I didn't think, in this one. The Kopitar, Turcotte, Laferriere line had an okay first half of the game, but then didn't really have much going on in the second half. And then they ended up having Adrian Kempe go back on that line with Kopitar and with Turcotte. And I thought they were more effective with Kempe on that line. As for Kopitar, he now has just 1 goal in his last 22 games. And the captain said after this loss to St. Louis, quote, "We've just got to play better. We've got to play with a lot of emotion, and everybody's got to contribute more. Me being on the very top of the list. I've got to lead the way and make sure that the team is ready and a lot more engaged than we were tonight." End quote. So as a captain, as a leader of the team, you are expected to take on that kind of responsibility. Andrei Kopitar is doing that. No surprise there, but Kind of just like Joel Edmondson saying must win against Chicago. You got to back it up now. Same thing for Anze Kopitar saying he's got to lead the way. Got to back it up going forward, and hopefully he will. As for any Kings that kind of really played well, they weren't a lot. I thought Warren Fogle actually played really good, had a lot of effective shifts where he had a lot of high effort where it resulted in some zone time and some cycle time for the Kings. Akil Thomas got in the lineup, and obviously as a fourth liner, didn't get a ton of playing time, but I thought he brought some good injury and a good energy, and would like to see him play a little bit more going forward, but we'll see. While the Blues scored on their opportunities, the Kings didn't on the few that they had. They had a 3-on-2 rush with Kopitar, who failed to convert. They had a shorthanded 2-on-1 where Quentin Byfield actually made a really nice pass over to Trevor Lewis, but he couldn't finish. And they had a quality scoring chance from Philip Deneau when he rang one off the post. So even if they are able to score on one or two of those opportunities, still probably not enough. But again, the way things are going right now offensively for the Kings, got to convert when you get those chances. The Blues had a breakaway and they scored, taking advantage of their opportunities. The Kings did not do that. Checking the leaders as far as the game goes, for the game against St. Louis, well, Kevin Fiala had the only goal. Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar had the assists. There were no Kings players who were a plus player on the night, which is understandable. Philip Deneau, Kevin Fiala, Jacob Movarar were all a -2. Jordan Spence was a -3. Kevin Fiala, Anze Kopitar, Drew Doughty, Alex Turcotte all tied for the team lead with 3 shots on goal. Tanner Jeannot, as usual, led the team in hits with 4. Jacob Movarar led the Kings with block shots. He had 3 of them. And Drew Doughty, of course, was the leader in ice time with 24 minutes and 58 seconds. So that was a look at some of the individuals for the Kings. Not a lot there, real positive, unfortunately, in that game against the Blues. And it's going to take a lot of those players turning things around going forward in their next game against Chicago to try and get things going in the right direction. Coming up, we'll check out the Pacific Division standings. Plus, we have news on a former King and hopefully a future King as well. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. If you're like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee, but I got tired of settling for grocery store brands that were just not cutting it. And that's why I turned to Trade. That's the name of them, Trade. And let me tell you, this coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste-tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. The subscription makes it easy. No last-minute grocery store runs or settling for whatever's on the shelf. And if you don't love your first bag, no worries. Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/lockedonnhl for 40% off your first order. drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. Well, the trade deadline is coming up this Friday. That will dominate a lot of the hockey talk this week. And we saw a handful of deals go down on Saturday. Kind of feels like the Kings not only need an addition to help them out in areas of need, but maybe right now somebody to come in and maybe inject kind of a spark and get some life going into the team. We'll see what Rob Blake and company end up being able to do for the LA Kings. It's something we're certainly going to talk a lot about coming up to the deadline again. That is this Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see if the LA Kings can swing a deal to try and help themselves or not. Checking the Pacific Division standings after this latest loss for the Kings. They did lose ground in the standings to the Edmonton Oilers, who beat the Carolina Hurricanes 3-1. The Kings, though, did not lose ground as far as the teams that are chasing them in the standings. That would be the Vancouver Canucks and the Calgary Flames. The Canucks lost to the Kraken 6-3, and the Flames are shut out by the Panthers 3-0. So Vegas still leads the division with 76 points. Edmonton just 2 points back with 74. Obviously, the team that finishes runner-up in the division, as it stands right now, would be the Kings' first-round opponent in the playoffs. The Kings still in third place with 70 points on the season. So Vancouver still has 65 points with their loss. So they're still 5 points back of the Kings. They're in that number one wildcard spot in the West, or excuse me, the number two wildcard spot in the West. They're the last wildcard team right now. Calgary is right behind them, 1 point back with 64 points. Actually, St. Louis also now with their win, their fourth win in a row, 64 points as well. So the Blues are coming on. They're hot right now. And of course, the Kings got to play them 2 more times coming up here in short order. So again, Kings 4 points back of Edmonton for second, 5 points up on Vancouver for third in the Pacific. So the Kings are going through a little bit of a funk right now, and so is the Kings AHL affiliate, the Ontario Reign. The Reign were shut out by the Colorado Eagles on Friday 4-0. Phoenix Copley took the loss, allowing 3 goals on 25 shots. And on Saturday, the Reign were shut out by the Colorado Eagles, again 4-0. Phoenix Copley again in net, took the loss. So why is Phoenix Copley playing back-to-back games? That's obviously very rare. I mentioned earlier that the Kings may now have to address their backup goaltending position, and I think that it makes a lot of sense to give Eric Portillo that opportunity. But where is Eric Portillo? And if I somehow missed this, then I apologize. But Phoenix Copley has started the last 5 games for the Ontario Reign, including back-to-back nights. On the score sheet for the Ontario Reign, the backup goalie is listed as Dryden McKay. He's been called up from the Kings ECHL affiliate, the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. So where is Eric Portillo? I assume he's injured, but I haven't seen anything about it. And I will tell you, I looked for a lot longer than I wanted to try and find something. I searched the internet. I searched on social media, and I could not find a single thing about it. So I have no answer for it. So again, for me, I would give Eric Portillo a look at the Kings' number 2 goalie position. Again, though, I don't know if he's available. And I mentioned the trade deadline is coming up on Friday. So if the Kings do feel like we need to address our backup goalie situation, maybe Eric Portillo isn't an option right now. So again, if you guys have heard something, maybe you can let me know. Because like I said, I searched high and low and couldn't find anything about it. So clearly he's unavailable at the moment, whether it's injury or what, I don't know. But that's another layer into maybe the Kings having to make a decision to pick somebody up at the trade deadline. Now, Phoenix Copley is certainly an option. He's a veteran guy. We've seen him with the Kings before in the past. So that could be a possibility as well. But I'm not sure what's going on with Eric Portillo right now. But the Ontario Reign losing a couple in a row as they are battling for the top spot in the Pacific Division in the AHL. I said earlier we had some news on a former King. That would be 2-time Stanley Cup winner Kyle Clifford. He had his number 13 retired by his junior team, the Barrie Colts, this week, which is quite an honor for any player at any level to have his number retired. Kyle Clifford, certainly not known for being a star player, but was a very valuable role player, tough guy, power forward, always played hard, brought that physical element to the LA Kings, and was a part of obviously 2 Stanley Cup winning teams with the Kings. So he's always going to be remembered as a fond, former King. Clifford, 34 years old. You may be surprised to learn still playing professional hockey. Kyle Clifford is in the AHL playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs affiliate, the Toronto Marlies. In his 15th season of professional hockey, played parts of 10 seasons with the Kings, 660 career games in LA. His rookie year was 2010-11, and he played with the Kings through the 2019-20 season. So Kyle Clifford getting his number retired by his junior team, the Barrie Colts. Good to know he's still out there and still getting it done. As for hopefully a future King, I did see that LA Kings number 1 prospect Liam Greentrees went over 100 points this season for the Windsor Spitfires. At last check, Liam Greentree had 42 goals and 61 assists for 103 points so far this season, playing in the OHL. And I also saw that a friend of the show, Brian in Tampa, sent me an email with a video of Liam Greentree getting into a fight this week as well. And I'm guessing he's not someone who fights much, but I got to tell you, he held his own in that fight that I saw recently. So Liam Greentree is having a hell of a season, and hopefully he'll be a bright part of the LA Kings future coming up soon. And hopefully, speaking of fight, we'll see some fight out of the LA Kings in their next game. That'll be Monday in Chicago against the Blackhawks. For you everydayers, those of you that listen to watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Monday's show, we will recap that now seemingly big game in Chicago against the Blackhawks shortly after its conclusion. That is a 5:30 LA time start on Monday in Chicago as the Kings look to avoid going 0 for 3 on this 3-game road trip. If you want to send an email to the show to stay interactive with us, send me an email of a fight that Liam Greentree got into. And also to be a part of our Friday fan feedback shows, you can send an email to lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. Always welcome to post your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. Stay interactive with the show on X, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. And as always, go Kings go.